A young girl stumbles upon a wallet brimming with cash. Her family's escape from poverty, right in her hands. But when she chooses to return it, she has no idea the decision will lead her down a path far more shocking than she ever imagined. What will happen next? By the way, where are you watching this from? Drop a comment below. I'd love to know. At only 11 years old, Alicia Johnson had already learned more about hardship than most children her age. She lived with her mother, Tanya, in a small, run-down apartment on the outskirts of the city. Tanya worked long hours as a waitress at a diner, trying to make ends meet, while Alicia went to a public school just a few blocks away. Money was always tight. Too tight. Alicia knew better than to ask for new shoes or toys. She had stopped asking years ago. The apartment was cramped, the walls chipped, and their fridge was often empty except for leftovers from the diner Tanya brought home. But despite everything, Alicia didn't let her circumstances define her. She had an unshakable kindness, an inner light that shined through even when times were rough. If there was one thing her mother had taught her, it was this: it doesn't matter how little you have. What matters is what's in here, Tanya would say, tapping her chest above her heart. That morning, Alicia grabbed her worn-out backpack and kissed her mother on the cheek before heading out for school. "I love you, Mom," Tanya smiled, brushing the hair from Alicia's forehead. "I love you too, baby. Be good." Alicia nodded. She always tried to be good. She knew her mother was counting on her in ways that went beyond words. As she walked down the cracked sidewalk, the sounds of city life buzzing around her, Alicia noticed little things. The stray cat that always prowled by the corner store, the kind old man sweeping outside his barbershop, and the candy wrappers littering the pavement. The city was rough, but it was home. She adjusted the straps on her backpack and took a deep breath, thinking about the week ahead. Her mom's paycheck wouldn't come in until Friday, and that meant they had to stretch what little they had until then. She could already tell Tanya was worried. Alicia had seen it in her mother's tired eyes the night before. But she didn't want to think about that right now. School was her escape, a place where she could focus on things that made her dream about a better future, even if her classmates didn't always understand her or where she came from. Little did she know, that day was about to bring something unexpected, something that would change her life forever. Alicia was on her way home from school, kicking a pebble along the sidewalk as she walked. She wasn't in a hurry. She knew her mother wouldn't be home until late, and there was no use rushing back to an empty apartment. As she passed by the entrance of a coffee shop, something on the ground caught her eye. A small black wallet, lying half-buried beneath a few fallen leaves. She paused, looking around to see if anyone nearby had dropped it. The street was busy, but no one seemed to be looking for anything. She crouched down, picked up the wallet, and brushed the leaves off it. It felt heavy in her hands. Her heart raced a little as she opened it. Inside were several crisp bills, 20s, 50s, even a $100 bill tucked in the back. She had never held that much money in her life. Her fingers trembled slightly as she counted it in her head. Close to $500. She swallowed hard, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and fear. This money could make such a difference. She thought about the groceries they needed, the new shoes she had been eyeing at the thrift store, and how relieved her mother would be if just once they didn't have to worry about rent. But there was more in the wallet than just cash. Alicia found an ID card tucked behind the bills. The photo on it showed a middle-aged woman with short blonde hair, her name printed underneath. Rebecca Thompson. The address listed was just a few blocks away. Alicia stared at the picture, her heart pounding. She knew what she was supposed to do. Her mother had always told her, if something isn't yours, you give it back. No questions. But this wasn't just some loose change or a toy someone had dropped. This was real money, and a lot of it. For a moment she imagined what it would feel like to keep the wallet. No one would know. She could take a little money, just enough for groceries, and leave the rest. Maybe it wasn't even stealing if she was just using it to survive. The thought lingered in her mind, tempting and dangerous. But then she thought about her mother's words. It doesn't matter how little you have. What matters is what's in here. Alicia took a deep breath and closed the wallet. She knew what she had to do. With the wallet clutched tightly in her hand, she turned and started walking toward the address on the ID card. As Alicia walked toward the address on the ID card, her mind swirled with conflicting thoughts. The weight of the wallet in her hand felt heavier with each step, as if the money inside was pulling her in two different directions. Part of her kept thinking about what $500 could do for her and her mom. Groceries, rent, maybe even a small treat like pizza for dinner. Just the idea of not worrying about bills for a little while sent a small thrill through her. But every time she thought about keeping the money, she felt a knot tighten in her stomach. It didn't feel right. Her mom had always raised her to be honest, to do the right thing no matter how hard it was. Integrity, her mother called it, even if it wasn't always easy to hold on to. And Alicia knew that returning the wallet was the right thing to do, no matter how much she wanted to keep it. The street grew quieter as she got closer to the address on the ID. It was a nicer neighborhood, with tall buildings and neatly trimmed trees lining the sidewalks. The contrast between where she lived and this part of the city was stark. For a brief moment, Alicia wondered what it must be like to live somewhere like this, where everything seemed clean and safe, where money wasn't such a constant worry. She stopped outside a tall apartment building with glass doors and a shiny brass intercom. This was the place. Her heart raced as she stared up at it, trying to gather her courage. What if the person didn't believe her? What if they thought she had stolen something? She'd heard stories about people like her being judged unfairly just because they were poor, just because they looked different. Alicia shook the doubts from her head. She knew what was right, and she wasn't going to back down now. Taking a deep breath, she pressed the button on the intercom marked *Thompson* and waited. A crackle came through the intercom before a woman's voice spoke, sounding distracted. "Hello?" Alicia's throat felt dry, but she forced herself to speak clearly. "Hi, I found a wallet and I think it belongs to you. It had your ID in it and I wanted to give it back." There was a brief pause, and then the woman's voice returned, this time filled with surprise. "You found my wallet? Oh my goodness, where are you?" "I'm downstairs in front of your building," Alicia replied, clutching the wallet tightly in her hands. She heard a buzz as the front door unlocked. "Come on up. Apartment 3B. Alicia pushed open the door and stepped into the lobby, her heart pounding harder than before. She had done the right thing, but the uncertainty of what would happen next made her anxious. Would the woman be kind? Would she even care? The elevator ride felt like it took forever. Alicia kept her eyes on the floor, nervously shifting from foot to foot. When the doors opened with a soft ding, she stepped out into a quiet hallway. She found the door marked 3B and hesitated for just a moment before knocking softly. The door opened almost immediately, revealing a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair, just like the photo on the ID. She was dressed casually in a sweater and jeans, but her face looked tired, as if she had been having a long day. Her eyes widened when she saw the wallet in Alicia's hands. "Oh my God," the woman breathed, putting a hand to her chest. "I can't believe it. I didn't even realize I'd lost it. Thank you so much." Alicia smiled, a little relieved. "It was on the sidewalk outside a coffee shop. I thought you might need it." "I definitely do," the woman said, taking the wallet with a grateful expression. "There's important stuff in here. Credit cards, my ID, and the money." Alicia nodded, feeling a sense of pride wash over her. She had done the right thing. As she watched the woman check the contents of the wallet, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. But then the woman looked back at her, and something flickered in her eyes. "Wait a second. You didn't take any of the money, did you?" she asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Alicia froze, her chest tightening. "No, ma'am, I didn't take anything. It's all there, just like I found it." The woman's gaze softened after a moment, as if she realized how unfair the question had been. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to accuse you. It's just, in this world you don't always expect people to be so honest." Alicia shrugged, trying to brush off the hurt that lingered in her chest. "It's okay." I just wanted to make sure you got it back." The woman stared at her for a moment longer, and then something seemed to shift in her expression. She looked at Alicia more closely now, as if seeing her for the first time, not just as a girl who had returned her wallet, but as someone with a story of her own. "What's your name, sweetheart?" she asked, her tone softening. "Alicia," she replied, feeling a little nervous under the woman's gaze. "Alicia Johnson." The woman smiled gently. "Well, Alicia, you're a remarkable young lady. Not many people would have done what you did." Alicia didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to compliments, especially from strangers. "Is there something I can do to thank you?" the woman asked. "I'd like to offer you something, anything as a token of my gratitude." But Alicia shook her head, feeling shy. "No, ma'am. I didn't do it for a reward. My mom always says you should do the right thing no matter what." The woman looked deeply moved by those words, and for a moment she seemed lost in thought. Then, as if a sudden realization had dawned on her, she smiled again. But this time, it was a smile filled with something more than gratitude. It was the beginning of something far more meaningful than Alicia could have imagined. Rebecca Thompson stood in the doorway for a moment, silently admiring Alicia's poise and honesty. It wasn't just the girl's kindness that struck her. It was the fact that Alicia had shown such integrity despite clearly coming from difficult circumstances. The oversized backpack slung over Alicia's shoulder, her worn-out shoes, and the way she carried herself told Rebecca more than words ever could. "Tell you what, Alicia," Rebecca said with a kind smile. "I don't want to send you off with nothing. Why don't you come inside for a little bit? I've got some cookies and juice if you're not in a hurry." Alicia hesitated. She wasn't used to receiving kindness from strangers, at least not like this. But Rebecca's smile was warm and genuine, and Alicia felt like it wouldn't hurt to stay just for a minute. "Okay," she said shyly, stepping into the apartment. The space was beautiful and neat, filled with cozy furniture and framed photographs on the walls. Alicia couldn't help but feel a little out of place. It was the kind of home she had only seen on TV, clean and quiet, without the constant hum of struggle in the background. She carefully set her backpack down near the door, unsure of where she should sit. Rebecca led her to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of apple juice. "Help yourself," she said, placing a plate of chocolate chip cookies on the table. "Fresh from the bakery down the street." Alicia smiled gratefully and took a cookie. As she nibbled on it, she glanced at a picture frame on the wall, a photo of Rebecca with a little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, both smiling brightly. "That's my son," Rebecca said, noticing Alicia's gaze. Her voice softened. "His name was Daniel." "Was?" Alicia asked quietly, sensing a sadness behind Rebecca's words. Rebecca nodded, her smile faltering. "He passed away a few years ago. A car accident." Alicia looked down, feeling a wave of sympathy wash over her. She knew what it was like to lose people, to miss someone every day, even when they were gone. "I'm really sorry," Alicia whispered. Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed Alicia's hand gently. "Thank you, sweetie." For a moment, they sat in silence, bound by an unspoken understanding of loss and pain. Rebecca's gaze lingered on Alicia, her expression thoughtful. "You remind me of him, you know," she said softly. "Not just because you're young, but because of your heart. Daniel was always doing the right thing, even when no one was looking." Alicia wasn't sure what to say to that. She looked down at her hands, feeling a little overwhelmed by the unexpected depth of the conversation. Rebecca leaned back in her chair and gave a small, wistful smile. "I think fate brought you to me today, Alicia." As the afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows, Rebecca's expression shifted from one of quiet sadness to hopeful determination. "Alicia, I want to do something for you," she said, her voice steady. Alicia shook her head quickly. "Really, it's okay, ma'am. I don't need anything." Rebecca smiled gently. "I know you didn't do it for a reward. but hear me out." She reached into a drawer and pulled out a notepad, scribbling something on it. "This is my card. I work for a foundation that helps students with scholarships and mentoring. We help kids just like you, bright kids with good hearts who deserve every chance to succeed." Alicia stared at the card, feeling a knot of disbelief in her chest. "A scholarship?" she whispered, barely able to process the words. Rebecca nodded. "Yes, I can't promise anything right away, but I want to help you. We can figure it out together. I know school isn't always easy when you've got a lot on your plate at home, but you shouldn't have to carry all that weight alone." Alicia's hands trembled slightly as she took the card, her heart pounding in her chest. No one had ever offered her an opportunity like this before. It felt like a door opening, a door she hadn't even known existed. "Thank you," Alicia whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, sweetheart," Rebecca replied warmly. "Just keep being the wonderful person you are. The rest will fall into place." Alicia felt tears sting the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back, not wanting to cry in front of a stranger. For the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't dared feel in a while. Hope. As Alicia finished her cookie, Rebecca smiled warmly at her. "Now, you better get home before your mom worries. But keep that card, okay? And tell your mom she raised one heck of a daughter." Alicia nodded, clutching the card as if it were the most precious thing in the world. She stood up to leave, her heart light despite the weight of the day. Rebecca walked her to the door and opened it, standing in the doorway as Alicia stepped out into the hallway. "Thank you again, Alicia," Rebecca said softly. "You've reminded me today that kindness still exists, and that's worth more than anything." Alicia gave her a shy smile. "Thank you, ma'am." As the door clicked shut behind her, Alicia felt like she was walking on air. She clutched the card tightly in her hand as she headed toward the elevator, knowing that something had shifted in her life. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she believed it could be something better than she had ever imagined. Alicia practically ran all the way home, her heart pounding with excitement. The weight of the world felt lighter on her shoulders, as if her small act of kindness had opened doors she hadn't dared to dream about. She clutched Rebecca's card in her hand the entire way, as if it might disappear if she let go of it. When she finally reached her apartment building, she pushed open the heavy front door and climbed the narrow staircase to the second floor. She could hear the familiar sounds of neighbors arguing and a baby crying somewhere down the hall, but for once, those sounds didn't bother her. She had something good, something really good, and she couldn't wait to tell her mom. Her mom wasn't home yet, as usual, so Alicia sat at the small kitchen table, waiting and rehearsing how she would explain everything. She imagined how happy Tanya would be when she heard about the scholarship opportunity. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the break they had been waiting for. When Tanya finally walked through the door, looking exhausted from her double shift, Alicia jumped up from her chair. "Mom, guess what?" Alicia's face was glowing with excitement as she held up Rebecca's card. Tanya dropped her bag by the door and gave her daughter a tired but curious smile. "What's got you so excited, baby?" Alicia took a deep breath and launched into the whole story. The wallet she found, the nice lady named Rebecca, and the promise of a scholarship. As she spoke, Tanya's eyes filled with tears. "You gave back the wallet? With all that money in it?" Tanya asked softly, brushing a hand over Alicia's hair. Alicia nodded earnestly. "Of course, Mom. You always tell me to do the right thing." Tanya's lips trembled as she smiled, pulling Alicia into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You've got a good heart, just like I always knew you did." They stood like that for a moment, just a mother and daughter holding on to each other and to the hope that maybe things were finally starting to change. The next few weeks passed in a blur of hope and excitement. Rebecca stayed true to her word, helping Alicia and Tanya navigate the scholarship application process. She introduced them to mentors from her foundation, and even arranged for Alicia to attend free workshops and tutoring sessions. For the first time, Alicia felt like doors were opening for her, doors she had never known existed. Tanya, too, began to feel the weight of her struggles lift, even if just a little. Knowing that someone believed in Alicia and wanted to invest in her future gave her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She still worked hard, but now she did it with a lighter heart, knowing that better days were within reach. Alicia threw herself into her schoolwork with new energy. The promise of the scholarship gave her a sense of purpose and direction she hadn't had before. She didn't want to let Rebecca, or her mother, down. One afternoon, after a meeting at the Foundation's office, Rebecca pulled Alicia aside. "I've been thinking," Rebecca said thoughtfully. "I'd like to invite you and your mom to dinner sometime soon. I want to get to know you both better. I think you're pretty special, Alicia." Alicia beamed. "We'd love that," she said, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. When Alicia and Tanya arrived for dinner at Rebecca's apartment a few days later, it felt like more than just a meal. It felt like the beginning of something new. They sat around Rebecca's dining table, laughing and sharing stories, feeling for the first time in a long while like they belonged somewhere. As they ate, Rebecca turned to Alicia with a soft smile. "You know, Alicia, finding that wallet wasn't just luck," she said. "It was meant to happen. Sometimes the universe puts people in our paths for a reason." Alicia smiled back, feeling that truth deep in her heart. She had found more than just a wallet that day. She had found hope, opportunity, and a connection that went beyond